Austin here, resident artist for Mixed Media Art School with another Monday prompt project. Today's theme is drips and splatters. You can always play along. You can use my video as inspiration or just come up with your own interpretation of the theme drips and splatters. So first I'm just coating a journal page spread with Posca paint pens, and I'm not covering the whole page or surface. I'm just getting just enough to add a little bit of color, get rid of the white space. Then I'm going over with some acrylic ink and just splattering it on randomly on both sides. I like to pick colors that contrast, so the red and the pink are both warm colors, and so the splatters on the first layer are some cool blues and aquas. And then I'm going in and adding just a little bit of red splatters of acrylic ink and then some high flow acrylic ink in aqua, and then just taking a regular spray bottle and just hitting it with just little splashes of water to kind of make the ink bloom and splatter. And then while it's still wet, going over the top with some more Posca paint pens. And then I like to kind of squish everything together, give it like a nice kind of mottled look. Again with some high flow acrylic ink, this time in a dark blue, and I'm just rolling it around. If it gets on my finger, I just use my finger as a paintbrush, and then again hitting those the wet ink with the water, and then letting those letting the paint just go all around the page. And I like to pick it up, I like to shake it, and I just like to, while it's wet, give it a chance to run across the page. And then while the page is still wet, I'm going over with some water-soluble crayons, the Crayon d'Ache. You can use any kind of watercolor or water-soluble crayon. And sometimes I like to either just go over it, color right on the surface where it's dry, and then hit it with some water or a paintbrush, or sometimes I like to wet the surface first and then draw on top. Here I'm just coloring first and then spraying with some water and then spreading the color with my fingers. I love finger painting. I think it's probably my favorite tool to use are my fingers instead of paintbrushes. I didn't like how dull the Posca red looked compared to the rest of the blues and the pink, so I went over it with another water-soluble crayon trying to brighten up the red. You can also use acrylic paint when your surface is dry. You can add, you can always add more color, but I just wanted it to be more kind of matching the vibrancy. And now I'm just going over and just freehand drawing some rainbow shapes and some concentric circles with the crayons, the water-soluble crayons. And the surface is still semi-wet, although it's drying pretty fast. I'm working outdoors in the Phoenix heat, so it is about 110 out. So everything dries really fast, so that's kind of a plus. But you can also let it dry and come back to it or hit it with a heat gun. And here I'm just adding some more acrylic paint drops, acrylic ink, and then letting that flow. And then after it dried, I wanted to add some splatters with some gold watercolor, some really sparkly gold watercolor, and just paint in some of the shapes, kind of randomly, just hitting it with some gold here and there. And I'll link to all of the supplies in the description, but this is from Little Rainbow Moon handmade watercolors, and I love them. They're very luminescent and very pigmented. And here I'm just dripping it right onto the page. Big splatters with my paintbrush, or just spraying right into the watercolor and then letting that drip out of the little pan onto the page. On the the other side, I've decided to make these weird blobs into sort of flowers, so I'm just painting every other little fold, and then also adding stems. So you can, sometimes I like to make the drips happen naturally, but in this case I wanted just to paint the drips on, so it sort of looks like they're dripping flowers, and so I'm just painting those drips right on there. There's no right or wrong way. Whatever makes you happy, do it. And then I just love adding the extra splatters. I feel like it's just a lot of fun. And then this one is sort of a silverish. It's very translucent, so it's just for sparkle, not so much for color, but it's just a nice way to add sparkle without covering up all of the background. I'm adding more watercolor, this time with a bright pop of fluorescent pink watercolor. Again, creating little kind of raindrop patterns and more splatters. You'll see in the close-ups, I've taken pictures of just all the different splatters. Some are big, some are small, but I love using a paintbrush to splatter on. You can also use a toothbrush, or any instrument that you have. And now I'm just adding little pops of pink to the rainbows and the flowers, just for fun. Now just adding little plus marks with fluorescent blue watercolor. Now just remember that all water media is going to be water soluble, so anything you put on top of this layer is going to run together. So I normally work with watercolor in the very last layers, just so that it doesn't all run together. And I really want to wait, you want to wait until the layer before is dry before you add watercolor on top, or any water soluble media. And then more splatters, because that's the theme. And then once this layer is dry, I'm going over and very carefully adding some collage layers. Now, because everything is water soluble, the medium is going to pick up, and you even notice some bits of color have transferred to the collage paper, but that's okay. I don't like my collage paper just to stick out on top. I like it to blend in, so if a little bit of color ends up on the top of the collage paper, it feels like it blends in better to me. And so what I like to do is I like to add a little layer of the collage medium first, and then a little bit to the back of the paper, and then I like to sandwich it together, squish it down, and then add another layer of collage media on top, and then use my fingers to spread the medium on top of it, and then that gets rid of any air bubbles underneath and will usually solve the problem of any crumpled paper or bubbles. You get a nice smooth texture. And I'm just going randomly. I'm not really looking at this piece as a 100% finished piece. This is more of a background starter, or just something fun to kind of experiment with in your journal. I like to take pictures of different parts of collages or journal pages and make prints of those, or make final pieces out of that. That's always a fun way to get a really nice finished piece. When you zoom in on a project, you can find infinite amount of artwork within an artwork. So I would think of this as more of a fun exercise in layering. You can add words, you can add a focal image, but this is just a starter piece. I really just wanted to play with splatters and drips and really get into this week's theme. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Monday prompt project, Drips Splatters. Remember, you can play along. You can post on Facebook or Instagram using the hashtag Monday Prompt Project. Check out Mixed Media Art School for really cool art classes that you can take online. Lots of great ideas. I hope you enjoyed this week's prompt, and I hope to see you play along with us.